Hello and welcome to this first look exploring session looking at the Wars of Cyrus, King of Persia. This is our second session looking at the second half of the play, Act 2, Scene 5 onwards, as we have it listed here. So far the Wars of Cyrus have not exactly involved an awful lot of warring. There was vaguely some warring that may have happened before the play started, and there may be some warring coming up. There's some sort of skirmishing and some occasionally quite unpleasant sexual politics. The question we are going to be raising now is whether the play is going to land on the side of the angels or whether it's all going to get really dodgy and uncomfortable. We shall see. You never know whether the curse of the final session is going to land heavily on us today, but you are warned that this may be drifting into territory which may be uncomfortable. To discuss what's going on and to read our way through the play, we have in the room, reading Cyrus himself is...
Hello, my name's Francis Cox. I'm an actor living in Amsterdam.
Reading Antiochus today is...
I'm not even muted. How exciting. My name is Lynn Freitas. I'm a college writing teacher. I live in the northwestern United States.
Reading Panthea today is...
Hi, my name's Elizabeth Amisu, based in Romford.
Reading Dinon, Ctesiphon, and Captain today is...
Hi, Alan Scott, based in Suffolk.
Reading Libanio and Hircanus today is...
I am American. I'm always dodgy and uncomfortable, so it's fine.
Reading a Nobleman and Histaspas or something like that is...
Hello, Dan, still hailing from Montpellier, France.
Reading Gobrias and Nicasia is...
That's me, Nicole, actor in New Jersey.
Reading Alexandra and Araspas today is...
Helen Good, historian in Hull.
And reading Abradatas is...
Briony in Lincolnshire.
And I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I'll be filling in stage directions and occasional other random characters as and when they are required. So without further ado, we are returning to the play. We just left a scene with Panthea having been magicianed by the slightly creepy Araspas. We are now flying off to another place where Libanio, who is in disguise, I should point out, a servant who is in disguise as his mistress, is in conversation with Dinon. So enter Dinon and Libanio.
Now are we at the banks of Euphrates, far from the camp where soldiers haunt. And here we may, under this poplar shade, discourse upon the sweetness of our love.
You know, my lord, I am too young to love.
Fair Alexandra, if thou love not me, thou art compact of adamant and iron. Thy years are fit for love, so are thy looks.
How fit soe'er my years be and my looks, I, Alexandra, am unfit to love. Is not my father with the Persian king, and I, Alexandra, as captive in his stead? And give me leave to wail my hard estate, and make a river with my flowing tears that mingled with the stream of Euphrates may swiftly run unto my father's seat, and make him haste to great Antiochus.
Nay, rather sit on this ledgy bank, that I, seeing thy shadow in the stream, may feed my fancy with thy pleasant view. If not enjoy the sweetness I desire, and leap into the waves and drown myself, that thou mayst pity Dinon being dead.
Oh, I could pity Dinon being alive, but then that I fear my father will not come, and then shall Alexandra suffer death. And being dead, Dinon may pity me.
Love. May I call thee love? No, she doth not frown. Her looks give warrants for that epithet. For thee I'll kneel before Antiochus, and rather than thou shalt be touched by him, I'll bear thee hence as far as Tanais, or keep thee close in these Assyrian woods.
No place is secret to Antiochus. Dost thou not know that kings hath reaching hands?
I do yet know my sword is sharp and keen, which when I draw and brandish in the air, all Babylon will fight in my avail. who honour me more than Antiochus. I will not say how great thy dower shall be, nor boast what cities I command. Let this, though not a king in name, in wealth and friends, I am an emperor.
If I should yield, your honor might suppose that dignity and wealth should conquer me. Therefore, I blush to say I love my lord.
And when thou blushes, Dinon's heart is fired. Therefore, to quench it, give it a great gentle grant.
My honor being preserved, my grant is given.
Thereof I am as chary as thyself, and of thy love as of my proper life. O Alexandra, thy words ravisheth me. Lull me asleep with the sweetness of the voice.
Then shall my song be of my Dinon's praise. Sleep, Dinon, then Libanio draw thy sword, and manly thrust it in his slumbering heart. There is no way to save thy life but this, and therefore fear not shall I slaughter him that entertained me with such amorous words, such bounteous gifts and golden promises. When he shall know I am Libanio, and go I not cannot, but I shall be ta'en, unless I slay him in his hapless sleep, for he will quickly wake and follow me. Now Dinon dies. Alas, I cannot strike. This habit makes me over pitiful. Remember, that thou art Libanio.
And the stage direction, she kills him, probably follows this next line.
No woman, but a bondsman. Strike and fly.
And exit Libanio. Enter the Assyrian king and his nobles.
Now that Gobrias' fortress is our own, his daughter prisoner and his country burnt, let's march from hence to wealthy Babylon, and muster those resolved citizens to meet the Persian in the open field. Twice hath he led his forces to our gates, yet never durst to mount his battering ram, or warlike engine against the rampart walls. Therefore, he no more in garrison, but bustle out and fight for liberty.
My lord, behold where Dinon slaughtered lies.
Dinon? Thou art deceived, it is not he.
It is, my lord, I know him by his scars.
These scars were given him in my father's days, and now he is dead, ere I can guerdon him. The greatest honor I can do thee now is to lament and kiss thy lifeless cheeks, and that I will perform for Dinon's sake. Oh, that I could revive thee with this kiss.
Doubtless Gobrias' daughter murdered him. I saw them in the morning walk abroad, and since they never returned into the camp.
Then she hath done this execrable fact, and so is fled unto her traitorous sire. Oh, that a silly maid should slaughter him, which not a world of Persians could subdue. Is there no end to my calamity? My father done to death by Cyrus' sword, wicked Gobrias and his daughter fled, false Ctesiphon resolved to murder me, and now Dinon, my chiefest captain, slain. Why run we not upon these Persians, which are the authors of these miseries? Come, soldiers, take him up and march away. We'll empty Babylon to meet our foes, and be revenged unto the 9th degree, both of Gobrias and his family.
And they exit. I think we need to pause and discuss this scene because, you've got lines which are full of sort of additional ironies. If you know, my lord, I am too young to love, which is doubly ironic considering the nature of the company that's playing this as a boys' company, and the way that Libanio is playing this scene, and then you get that sort of intimation of where it's going when Dinon starts saying, "Hey, look at my lovely sword." And then death. We've had our first death. I get the impression the room may have enjoyed that. The work that this play continues to do with all these boastful men. First one down. Long may it continue. Thoughts from the room. I'll go to Lynn.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of this, but if this is verbatim from the original text, she kills him. I mean, it's just a small thing, but I think it's fascinating that the stage direction uses the gender of the disguised character, not the. How slippery is gender identity in this period?
Yes, unless it's an accidental change
Yeah.
later on. I'm sure Dan will be
I
able
may
to.
be making too much of it, but
Yeah, Dan might be the one who'll be able to inform us as to whether that's an accurate thing.
It does say she kills him.
Excellent. So yes, it's a talking point we can definitely discuss. It's not an error by later editor. I was suddenly getting panicky that I got it because without checking who was who. Eric.
I was going to say that, yeah, we've seen that in like where they've used the identity of the disguised. They've used that before in lots of other places that we've seen, just like not gender crossing boundaries kind of thing, I think. And also what I was thinking was that, like, actually Alexandra might have actually done it herself. As in, if she had been in this situation, it's very likely that she would just, play it exactly the same way.
The strategies of coping with these men are seem to be quite straightforwardly universal. The Libanio has added a new twist. I presume that's after it got the sword in. As Briony.
Just maybe I'm thinking too straightforwardly, but the whole she killed him stage direction is completely unambiguous that way. Whereas if it says he killed him, there might be some confusion about who's killing who. I don't know. It might have just been just because it's simpler to put it that way.
Other thoughts about the scene? Obviously, they come on and stumble over the body. Antiochus is quite sad. Francis.
Yeah, yeah. I've only just parachuted into this play, but this first scene did amuse me, and I noticed Helen mentioned "Some Like It Hot" in the chat because he did remind me of Jack Lemmon and Joey Brown. It's a shame they didn't dance the tango in this play.
Well, we had music earlier, so it's not impossible. Briony.
I was initially a bit concerned when you were summing up what happened yesterday that you hadn't mentioned how thickly they'd laid on the potential future rapiness, but I think everybody's caught up with that now, having read that scene.
Yes, I was doing a sum up before we went onto camera about what was going on, and it's usually not very detailed. Lynn.
Yes, I'm also noticing Antiochus's I'm the real victim here shtick. He starts out, okay, so I've burnt down my enemy's castle and I've imprisoned his daughter and I've burnt his countryside because he insulted me. But then in the end, my father's been killed and my noblemen have betrayed me and they've all done me wrong and I'm gonna have my revenge. It's just like, dude, you don't remember the part where you murdered Gobrias' son? That just completely slipped your mind or what? Yeah, and Antiochus, I'm the real victim here. Where have we seen that before?
Many, many times. Eric.
Well, as someone who's been, not quite cornered in the same way, obviously, but cornered in that way, sort of by a guy who is bigger, older, whatever, it is kind of uncomfortable to have that, and kind of wishing that you have backup is always this is kind of comedy, but also it's not it's the same comedy as a magician scene.
Yeah, we were talking about where the tone of this lands last time, about the balance of scenes that on a structural level have the potential for comedy in them, but are not comedic scenes because of what's at stake. And what Dinon's reaction would be if he discovered the truth, or where that scene is going, because of course obviously Libanio has only so far to go. Where before that scene goes potentially very unpleasant. Rachael.
No, I wonder if that comedic structure is because, like, if you were to play this as a comedic scene, I feel like that does create like max discomfort, or yeah, no, serious or playing it just straight, it like is uncomfortable. But to try and make that funny is very like weird. It reminds me of I had to read it for some class ages ago, but Edward Albee, he did like a rendition of Lolita for the stage that was supposed to be a comedy that didn't end well.
Elizabeth, were you?
Yeah, just speaking to what Lynn said in the beginning about she kills him. I was really thinking about the concept of like gender. I think Eric put it in the chat as well, about the concept of gender when it's like an all male cast. And then it says she kills him, and it doesn't say how. I was really interested in how you would go about putting that on stage, how you'd make that a performative. Does she stab him? Does it take him a long time to die? He doesn't have any more lines, so usually when people are dying in these texts, they stay a lot more actually, but in this one it doesn't. So I was just wondering, in terms of the performativeness of that killing and the gender balance, when we know that all the cast are male.
It's a boys company, and what's going on? All we've got is strike and fly. We've got a weapon, but where are they striking? What part of the body? How is that enacted? Lots of hands suddenly flying up. I'll go Helen, then Francis, then Dan, then Alan.
Yes, I mean we've got sleep Dinon, then Libanio, draw thy sword. But I mean, how he's managing to wear a sword when disguised as a captured woman, it's difficult to exactly work out.
Where's Dinon's sword? Because he said earlier, I do yet know my sword is sharp and keen. So the thy might not be possessive in that sense.
Draw this sword that happens to be handy. Fair enough. I mean, thy sword always does seem fairly particular. But I mean, Elizabeth's right. We've got a boy playing a girl. All sorts of possibilities for confusion.
Francis.
Oh, actually, I just accidentally had my hand up, and now that I've got the floor, I would just say, I just assumed that Libanio had a handy little dagger. Killed him that way.
Dan.
Basically, just going to repeat what was already said. It's also indicated, of course, it says Osiris on thy sword, and on Cyrus's charge, one can say, perhaps.
Alan.
Basically being covered, he's either got a dagger secreted in his bodice, or he's using Dinon's own weapon.
Rachael.
The line right after, to thrust it in his slumbering heart. So I'm assuming he's going in and he's, going for the heart there. For the action, or the place to put it for the actor.
Well, it's just the fact that they don't recognise who he is when the others come on, just suggesting that this could be quite a quite a gory death potentially. So it's they can only recognise him by his scars. So that's potentially quite grim. Grimness level increasing here, Eric.
Yeah, I found it quite interesting that like Libanio hesitates, but not because he has to kill someone, or she, they, whatever, have to kill someone, but because like it's because of the words that Dinon has spoken, like the sort of amorous words and so on, and all the promises and blah blah blah. It's not because he actually has to take a life. And also, I found it interesting that he says this habit. I'm assuming the clothing makes me over pitiful, which is like, yeah, by wearing a dress you become more feminine in behavior, supposedly.
Alan.
I think the recognition issue might be done. I have a feeling was Dinon not a recent defector from t'other side? So he's not a long-term retainer of Antiochus.
Oh. He's chiefest captain.
I think he was appointed to that role during yesterday's proceedings. I think he was a turncoat.
I mean, he only gets one line last time, doesn't it? So it's slightly difficult to tell. I don't recall there being any particular mention as to who he is or at all. I mean, it is this thing that we've just killed someone who has had very little apparent stage time. I think we should be clear. It may have been about, and there may be, who knows, there may be material that we don't have. Anyway, we need to move on, I'm afraid. We may have overworked just simply because someone's died in this tragedy. So, Act 2, Scene 6. Yeah, we're nearly at the end of Act 2. Act 2 is very long, and the placement of acts is very questionable. Anyway, enter Cyrus and Panthea. So they have met now. Gobrias and Histaspas, or however that's pronounced.
O Cyrus, if the fortune of thy hand have turned my freedom to captivity, and of a queen made me a captive dame, yet think that virtue is not thrall to chance, nor honour subject to unhappy time, but like a gallant consecrated ship, that in extremest wrath and storms of seas vaunts all her sails and fights the battle out.
Madam, the reason of these vehement terms Cyrus doth neither know nor can conject. It since the time of your captivity you have not been entreated as you ought. The gods can tell 'tis far against my thought.
Then know, my great lord, the man that took the charge to guard my honour and my person free, long since doted on my person so, that doting he hath sought my honour's wreak. A tedious siege, God knows, I have endured, more hideous unto me than hasty arms, while viled Araspas with his lewd desires ceaseless solicited my unlawful bed. Without repulses I have quailed his hope, which he renewed with charge of fresh assaults. But my denials made his purpose vain. In fine, when no entreaty could prevail to frame my fancy to his wicked will, he falls to threatenings from persuasion's terms, and vows to purchase his desires by force. And therefore, Cyrus, as thou art a king, protect a lady's honour from the spoil, and let thy bondmaid live and die unstained. And if there rest no other hope for me, but havoc, rake, and ruin of my fame, O Cyrus, on thy sword let Panthea die, and so prevent the danger of my shame.
Lady, how far your visage disagrees from Cyrus' meaning, records be the gods. As for myself, not vainly be it said, I hold my eyes in bondage to my will, and keep my thoughts in yoke to reason love. My sight on beauty never surfeited, and where her beams were likely to infect, my judgment was a veil before mine eyes, to bear such piercing flames from my heart. Such as I am, such must my followers be, else let them pack, they shall not follow me. The man that offered to dishonour you shall be so thoroughly chastised for his fault, as you shall rest sufficiently revenged. Acknowledge me a gracious conqueror. Histaspas, carry her to your pavilion.
So stand the gods assistant to your arms, as you stand pitiful to my mishaps.
And exit Histaspas and Panthea. Enter Gobrias and Libanio in woman's attire.
My lord, the gods and fate reserves your page to do you further service ere he dies.
Gobrias, goes your page in that attire?
My lord, she is no page of mine, some shameless strumpet and lascivious troll.
And hath my lord forgot his servant then?
First must I know before I can forget. Thee have I neither seen nor known till now.
Oh, say it not so, my lord, for oft ere this I have been seen and thoroughly known to you, and you I know to be my gracious lord, Gobrias, that renowned Assyrian.
Fond girl, it seems thy wits be not thine own.
What, hath my lord forgot Libanio?
I know thee now, thou art my sweet Libanio. Thy borrowed habit made me to mistake. I know thee now, thou art my sweet Libanio, a virtuous boy and of a noble spirit. To those deserts and courage I ascribe the rescue of my daughter's liberty. Oh, Cyrus, this is he that to preserve my daughter's freedom from the Assyrian king chose to disguise himself in her array, in fearful doubt and hazard of his life, to save her honor from the tyrant's wrath.
My boy, whate'er thy birth and fortune be, great doth this mind and thoughts of honor taste, expressing marks of true nobility, and to excite thee to commended works, which are the paths that to advancement leads. Receive this chain of gold from Cyrus' neck, and wear it in the face of all the world, not as a favour to thy person given, but as in honour to thy virtuous mind.
Great and surpassing is the kingly grace, yea, far beyond the compass of my hope. Gods grant me life and fortune to deserve this part of bounty at your royal hands.
And enter Alexandra.
A piano, then I have not prayed in vain, nor called upon the gods with frustrate vows, if thou once more be rendered to my sight. The tears of whose supposed funerals did hour by hour bedew my blubbered face.
Madam, the blessing of my strange escape I attribute alone unto the gods, if past so far the reach of human sense.
And for thy sake their altars I will smoke with sweet perfume of thankful sacrifice.
But boy, express in brief what means thou madest to escape so safely from the Assyrian camp.
This mean I found, and please my lord and king, upon suppose of Alexandra's self, I was committed to a nobleman, hight Dinon, to be guarded in his tent. The glory of my counterfeit attire and manners, framed according thereunto, did so inflame Dinon that with my love, that waking or sleeping or whatever else, he felt a restless combat in his thoughts. In fine, more safely to commence his love, he led me quite beyond the Assyrian camp, and brought me to the banks of the Euphrates. There sat we down, and he with amorous plead not only filed but cloyed my weary ears, so far that with long continued talk and heat of sun reflecting on the banks, or haply with the rattling harmony which Euphrates' gliding streams did keep, which seeing I imagined that the gods had offered this occasion to my hands for sweet recovery of my freedom. Short tale to make, with dreadful hand I drew the sword that hanged loose, dangling by his side, and with the full of my extended force I sheathed it home amidst the owner's ribs. He wounded Fet an inward groan or two, then turning on his face, breathed forth in his life. The deed I dispatched, I hide me thence amain, and escaping clean without impeach or stay, now stand before the Persian king this day.
President of manly fortitude, exceeding far the opinion of thy years, Gobrias, have an honourable care.
Ah, Libiano, now leave Alexandra's weeds. That part is played, and be yourself again. That part, poor boy, with danger hast thou played.
Madam, no danger can be so great that I'll refuse for Alexandra's sake.
Gobrias, say, is Alexandra she for whom your page these hazards hath sustained?
It is, my lord.
Then let us to your wished for place.
The place of Cyrus I desire to see.
This is the place that the men that follow me.
Then wample both my eyes that with this turf I may be sure to hit a virtuous man.
Shall she be his on whom this turf shall light?
So that the man be good and virtuous.
Then throw at random when you please, Gobrias. You cannot miss a good and virtuous man.
Then Alexandra at thy husband's head.
Histaspas, you are hit.
I am, my lord.
Then Alexandra, if you please, is yours.
Happy were I, if Alexandra please.
My lord, the fortune of my father's hand becometh not his daughter to withstand. To please my lord and father, I am yours.
Your father's pleased. Histaspas, she is yours.
Histaspas, take your love at Cyrus' hand. This is our guise, and this the Persians do. They woe and wed within a word or two.
And exit. Okay, we've got two things going on in this scene, which I note. Other things may be a thing. It's interesting, Gobrias' reverse ferret of going, who is this woman, this strumpet here? And then looks properly. Oh, no, he's done a great service. He's a great guy. Boy, tell us your story in brief. And it's not actually that long. I mean, we laugh. It's he's got a lot to say, and he answers some questions that we had about the staging. So that's nice. We know whose the sword was. We know where the sword was where the strikes were. So we know it's the victim's sword and the owner's ribs in the midst of. So we have precise stage directions for earlier, which we can now use. And then we have a sort of blind men's buff. Choose who gets married to Alexandra sequence, which does include at least happy were I if Alexandra please. Question of how much control and agency you have in that situation. So yeah, lots of things going on in this scene. I go to Rachael first.
No, I mean, in Mother Bombay, we had I wonder if there was like if this is supposed to make people think about, the agency people should have, women and should be allowed to have in choosing who they're married or engaged with, or, saying something like that, like how in Mother Bombay we had that sort of talk about agency and how kind of weird it is for your parents to choose that, especially in the context of all the rest of these scenes that we have that we have Panthea and Alexandra running from this, and Libanio running from these situations, and then she just given over to some random guy by her father, and like it literally is random who he chooses.
And it's asking the and also Histaspas doesn't necessarily have is chosen at random as well. And everyone's asked, but it's just it's weird things. Other thoughts in the room? Who wants to leap in? Eric.
I'm just wondering if that's actually like sort of to protect her, because supposedly women could not protect themselves, blah blah, misogyny, so on and so forth. I don't know. That's a weird element of the scene.
Hitting a virtuous man by random chance of blindfold turf throwing. Helen.
Yeah, I feel pretty strongly that this must be in the source, because I can't see how it comes about otherwise. It's some attempt to, and there's a certain amount of certainty. The candidates for being hit with the piece of turf are limited, presumably to the unmarried and virtuous members of the court.
None of whom we know who they are, because there's no other characters listed here who are present, apart from the king. There's nobody else here, as far as the script has told us. We can assume that there are more people. Otherwise, it's a bit of a one-horse race. But he's got his blindfold on, so for all we know, everybody else took a step backwards. And it hit me. I don't know. Lynn.
Yes, I think that's I that's what I was thinking, that in fact it could very well be set up.
Lynn. Muted at present.
So it was, the fix was in. I was going to change the subject a little bit back to Libanio showing up at court still in disguise. When Alexandra showed up first in Cyrus's court, she had had time to change clothes back into women's clothes. She didn't show up dressed as a page and went, "No, father, it's me." That took place off stage. But despite the prologue's warning that we're not going to have any comedy moments, it just seems to me Libanio showing up still dressed as a girl that's got to be kind of at least mildly amusing.
Well, it's also there is this sense that you get the impression Libanio's not in any great hurry to take any of this off, even when told to. It's just going, maybe Libanio is quite liking that. Seems very comfortable.
Like Jack Lemmon in Some Like It Hot.
Okay. We will move into Act 3. That was it for Act 2, if that is indeed where Act 2... the act structure actually matters with boys' companies because it's all indoors, so, at what point do you trim the candles and have a musical interlude is actually a genuine question. So that was a very long Act 2 otherwise, so it's interesting. Anyway, Act 3... Scene 1, enter Antiochus, Hircanus, Astobulus, and Ctesiphon.
Now, Ctesiphon, unsheath thy bloody sword, and show it stained and cankered with the gore that issued from the vaunting Persian's heart. What? Draw, man, and show thy just conceal. Thy pay is pressed in ready numbered gold.
My lord and king, I bear no bloody sword, nor stained with gore of Persian Cyrus' heart. A prince he is far from delight in blood, mild, lovely, virtuous, wise and bountiful, able to reconcile his greatest foes and make great princes of his meanest friends.
Thy going was to compass Cyrus' death. How haps thy purpose ends without effect?
Persian prince inclines to terms of truce and craves the friendship of Antiochus. So please my lord the king to form a peace, for brief whereof his letters I present, signed and delivered with his royal hand, sincerely tending to the same effect. Whereto, if once your highness condescend, he will withdraw his armies from Assyria, and on the covenant sealed, dissolve his camp.
In case the Persian prince be so inclined, thy answer shall less offend my mind. Cyrus to Antiochus, health. This bearer coming to my camp, armed with resolution to kill me, and entreated more honorably than either his treachery or thine could deserve, apprehended Ctesiphon.
What? Reads my lord aright, or doth he feign?
That you shall know before you start again. Upon the instant purpose of his enterprise, it pleased God to confound him with such horror of conscience that unconstrained he confessed the treason, and entreated pardon, vowing himself so far forth friend to Cyrus that for his sake he would kill Antiochus. I was content to soothe the man in his villainy, because I would have thee know the difference twixt an open and a dissembling friend. I give thee this notice, not because I love thee or regard thy life, but because a villain shall not triumph in the murder of him whom I account an honorable conquest of myself. Reward him according to his merits, and prepare to fight with me for thy own honor. Farewell.
This thankless Persian whom I spared from death requites me with the betraying of my life.
What answer maketh traitorous Ctesiphon?
O prince, my guilt is plain before my face, and witnessed with a prince's seal. To stand upon denial were but vain, where open proof convicts me of offence. I say no more, but prostrate at your feet, submit myself to mercy of my lord.
Such mercy as to traitors doth belong, such and no better Ctesiphon shall find. disarm him of his martial habiliment, disgrade him of all his titles of regard, and then refer his attachment to your prince.
This coat of arms, the badge of honor won through praise and virtue of thy ancestors, we rent it from that traitorous back of thine, and as an honor stained with villainy, in deep disdain we stamp it underfoot.
I didn't give out an Aristobulus, did I? No. Who wants to step in to be an Aristobulus? Anyone who's not in this scene at the moment. Go for it, Rachael.
This sword that once was girt onto thy side to be employed in service of thy prince, now void to gore the bowels of his grace, we break it here upon the traitorous head.
These squares of knighthood that present the pride and honor due to chivalry and arms, whose pricks should force the proud, courageous steed with thundering race to break the rider's lance, thus do we hew them from thy traitorous heels.
Thou art no man of honor nor of arms. Thou hast no title of gentility, no style of honor, left hereof to vaunt, but art become inferior of regard. Then is the basest bondman of Assyria or vilest slave that haunts the Lydian dames.
Dishonored traitor, now prepare thyself to yield thy head unto the hangman's axe.
Fate, but my demerits make me die. Oh, now I find nultum proditor.
And exeunt, enter Histaspas and Araspas.
I fear the fury of the Persian prince. Histaspas, Cyrus' fury do I fear.
And wrath of princes, what is it but death? Araspas, on my honor, make a proof, and never shun the presence of our Lord. A prince he is most mild and merciful, soon mollified with vows and penitence.
Okay, sorry, I'm just going to pause there actually, because that's clearly a totally separate scene. So we'll start that scene again in a moment. Okay, a scene division that I had not picked up on. Okay, we've had a very interesting de-spurring, sword hitting, and cloak stamping moment there from for this traitor, and this really interesting gambit by Cyrus here of going. We said yesterday, or someone said, I think it was Lois said yesterday, going, why did he send him back? Why did he take him at his word? And it's going, well, he doesn't like traitors, which is a bit odd because he's taken in a turncoat himself. Anyway, so yeah. It's an interesting little moment there for the downfall of Ctesiphon. He's off to die. Eric.
Well, also, it's interesting how you get you do not have stage directions, but you just have this coat of arms, the badge of honor won. It's they're stripping him of all his honors, but yeah, they don't have to. They basically describe what they're doing, which is pretty handy.
Yeah, they're and this is the worst, perhaps the worst way. The death is just the final thing. It's actually the dishonor that comes first.
Yeah, that's basically what I was going to kind of draw attention to. Is that it's the humiliation. It's being stripped of honors that's really emphasized here. That's what Ctesiphon suffers. That's the real punishment. Death. That's less than ideal, but oh well, that happens. But the public humiliation. So there's such an emphasis on honor and honorability and doing the right thing in this play, and Cyrus being the paradigm of that. He does the right thing, even to the point of risking his own life by sending Ctesiphon back and ratting him out rather than letting him assassinate Antiochus. I'd rather meet you in open field. So yeah, quite the interesting value system being exposed here.
Rachael, and did I see Elizabeth earlier as well? So Rachael, then Elizabeth.
No, to what Lynn just said, I think the dishonor thing, because they're all soldiers, so I'm sure to some extent they accept that they could die, and that is something I guess that perhaps they accept, but to be dishonorably discharged in such a way and to be stripped of that, I think that's some shame and humiliation for their social system that they create in the military.
Elizabeth.
Yeah, just speaking to what Rachael just said, I was thinking about this war imagery that we see in this scene, but also combined with the geography. We get these sort of geographical descriptions. And the text is called The Wars of Cyrus, and then we get a sense that there's a geography, there's a landscape in which these events are taking place. It says, then is the basest bondman of Assyria, or vilest slave that haunts the Lydian dames. I was really thinking about the concept of Assyria and wondering if we were there or we were going there or we'd been there in the previous part of the play.
I'm actually not 100% certain where geographically we are, actually. It's a very good point, actually, mapping out where we are in relation to the various forces and who's on what side. I've sort of just gone, there's a king here and there's a king there and they're doing some stuff. And I haven't been focusing on that. I don't know if anyone else in the room has and can explicate. But yeah, we've definitely got various things going on there. Rachael?
Persia never mind. I feel like we're in what would be modern day Iraq or that region, right?
Yeah, we're definitely dancing around the Middle East in some form, but I'm really unsure of precisely where the boundaries at this time would be existing. But I'm sure that data is available, and actually that's something we'd need to look at for a second look and taking this play further. Francis, then Eric, then Alan.
Yeah, two things. I thought it was a very interesting scene. One thing I found interesting was the Ctesiphon, even though he tried to betray Antiochus, as soon as he was found out, he didn't sort of he didn't really argue. He didn't sort of say, oh, well, the letter's a forgery, or what's he talking about? He immediately was like, it's a fair call, and the whole kind of stripping him of his coat of arms and his spurs and all of that. It was something very ritualistic about it, and since Antiochus had said, we're stripping you of your titles, and I sort of thought, I wondered, what happens to those titles? Do they get redistributed around his fellow soldiers? And is that part of this almost ritualistic stripping him of his decorations?
Eric, then Alan, then we'll need to move on.
I was going to say that it's very, how do you call it? Very modern Hollywood kind of thing, where it's like, oh yes, I will find him on the field and I will kill him personally. I don't need anyone else. It's very sort of, you can see this as a close-up on, like, I don't know, Cyrus dictating the letter, sort of going, yes, prepare to fight with me for thy own honor. It's like, he's that confident, he's that cocky.
Yes, God Spot comes down and suddenly he's upstage reading the letter live. Alan?
Yeah, all I was thinking in terms of setting up the loci is basically we seem to have got two basic settings. One which is the court of Cyrus in camp, the over-blinged one that they've taken earlier. And then we've got Antiochus's court with a slight side excursion to the banks of the Euphrates, and also I think Dinon's castle at one point, or Gobrias's castle.
Yeah, I mean, that's the interesting question, where he is at any one time, whereas we seem to have one locus for the most part for Cyrus.
You know, it would just be helpful, I think, if we were looking at this further, to put in some suggestions. I accept they're not in the original edition, but at least it would give us an idea of where the heck we are.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question whether it fundamentally matters in terms of precision, but certainly, you know, are we in camp? Are we, you know,
Or which camp?
Yeah. Well, I mean, basically we're either with one king or we're with the other.
Yeah.
And there's a colour scheme. Perhaps we just need to make sure they've got different flags. Rachael, and then we'll move on.
No, I was gonna say, for when we're with Cyrus, we might be further out, like in what's modern day Iran, or we could be over like in Turkey, because I was looking at the Persian Empire map, and I guess that they eventually take over everything. But Assyria is just right over, I think, modern day Sudan. And then I guess we have the Euphrates, which is through Assyria. So I guess that's where we are for the two sides.
Right. Well, we're going to fly back to the other side now, as we're back with Cyrus's court for what I've just labelled as Act 3, Scene 2. We'll just go back a few lines for the entrance of Histaspas and Araspas.
I fear the fury of the Persian prince. Histaspas, Cyrus' fury do I fear.
And wrath of princes, what is it but death? Araspas, on my honor, make a proof, and never shun the presence of our Lord. A prince he is most mild and merciful, soon mollified with vows and penitence. And though with great impatience he endure your threatened violence to the Susan queen, yet your submission and desire of grace will pierce him with compassion of your suit and purchase pardon at his royal hands.
Oh, spiteful beauty that bewitched my mind and led my fancy to such foul extremes. I will essay the mercy of my Lord and yield my life to hazard of his grace.
And doubt not, but of Cyrus you shall find a pitiful and passing gracious prince.
And enter Cyrus.
Histaspas and the rest, withdraw yourselves. Only Araspas stay behind with me.
My sovereign lord, in trembling fear I stay, and prostrate fall before your highness' feet. The frail effects and errors of my youth, enforced through follies of a wanton will, hath cast my life in peril of your wrath. Blinded with charms of beauty, I have fallen, and made my judgment subject to desire. And in pursuit of love's unbridled rage, I have transgressed the bounds of honor's laws. O gracious Lord, impute my error past unto the power of proud commanding love, that led my mind and thoughts so far astray. Forgive those frailties of my youth, O King, and take your servant once again to grace, with fear of your displeasure almost slain.
Forced to a queen, and she a captive too, a Persian lord so far misled with lust, intend dishonour to a silly day. Araspas, they that would be conquerors should chiefly learn to conquer their desire, lest while they seek dominion over others, they prove but slaves and bondmen to themselves. Now, where are those your big and brave disputes, wherein you pleaded love was voluntary, and fancy left and entertained at will, when you embrace it in such raging heat, that where entreaties fail of your desires, you fall from vows to violence with the day? Araspas, for the excuse of this offence, you find no precedent in Cyrus' life.
I know and grant, my lord, the prince abounds with peerless gifts and graces of the mind, wherewith the gods have filled his kingly breast. There naught but virtuous motions taketh root, nothing but honour harbours in that seat. and holy thoughts direct his royal deeds, and so his grace might every way be found worthy the glory of so high a charge. Yet, since these frailties that disgrace your thrall are human faults, and incident to mind, where strong desires hold reason under yoke, the wonted mercy of my lord the prince, so prone in favour to the penitent, may mitigate the shame of this my fault, with sweet compassion to his prince's thrall.
Araspas, I remit thee this amiss, although blameworthy in the highest degree, and for your tried deserts in martial praise, I am content this folly to forget. Yet would I have it seem unto the world that my displeasure made you fly from me, and so revolted to the Assyrian arms. There this suppose shall make you entertained, and highly favoured of that graceless king, by means whereof full safely you may learn the garrison and strength of Babylon, the utmost force and puissance of our foes, with every purpose of Antiochus, the time and place where he intends to fight. Then having learned the full of everything, in secret you may scape again to me, with just relation of the Assyrian camp. This service, if you please to undertake, you shall effect a singular good turn, and reap mortal thanks at Cyrus' hands.
No longer let Araspas live and breathe, than with the utmost venture of his life he will perform what Cyrus shall command. And sacred price for this extended grace, though in the compass of this hard affair I leave the Assyrian faction to maintain, yet vow to bear a trusty Persian heart.
Then go with fortune and return with health, and grant the gods this enterprise of thine may end and prosper with desired effect.
And grant the gods that Cyrus still may live, happy in peace and in arms victorious.
To pacify the angry Panthea's mood, I will persuade her of Araspas' flight, that he is revolted to the Assyrian king.
And we can assume that Araspas exited at the end of his last line. Enter Panthea here.
Ready the humble handmaid of my lord.
To calm the heart of your offended mind, thus have I lost as brave a warrior as ever trode upon the Persian fields.
What warrior means, my lord and conqueror?
Araspas, who in fear of my displeasure, I fled from me unto the Assyrian camp, and hath forsook the Persians' colours quite. Thus, madam, for your sake has Cyrus done, even lost the worthiest soldier of his band.
Cyrus, let not his loss perplex your mind. If you will let me send a messenger unto my lord and husband Abradatas, I know for these your princely favours done. To me, his wife, in this my captive's plight, he will attend your fortune in the wars with more sincere affection, love, and zeal than ever that ungracious person did. Again, my lord, my husband is a knight, as forward treads and fortunate in arms as ever spread his colours in the field.
It is like Abradatas will forsake his native prince to follow foreign arms.
The father of this king by Cyrus slain was highly loved and honoured of my lord. This now that reigns affected Panthea's bed, sought to procure a most unjust divorce betwixt my best beloved lord and me, who therefore bears him an immortal hate, the stars of which incurable despite remain so deep imprinted in his thought that 10 times blessed would he think himself to find a fit occasion for revenge.
Believe me, madam, if your lord be armed with such sore grounded malice to the prince, his help may greatly further my affairs, and therefore, if you can procure the man to stand assistant to the Persian arms, you shall deserve great thanks at Cyrus' hand.
Cyrus, I will presume to make my lord a trusty follower of the Persian arms, and him your highness shall not fail to find, a noble friend and valiant gentleman.
And madam, he shall want at Cyrus' hands no praise nor honour due to good deserts.
And exit. And so far, Cyrus continues to be, what a guy. Not more cunning than we took him for, because, he did the whole traitor thing, letter thing earlier. But now he's basically doing the same gambit. This spy gambit is they're sending spies left, right, and centre here. It gets rid of another dodgy person out of his court, I suppose. I can't see it going wrong. I'm sure it's a perfectly good plan to get rid of Araspas there. I don't think anything could go wrong there. And Panthea here is getting to bring her husband in on the picture, and is looking like there's a way out for her here. Things are looking up, he said. Lynn.
Yeah, my guess is that Cyrus's mistake is not actually trusting Araspas. That's not my guess is Araspas is penitent and is going to try to do his spy job. I think maybe Cyrus's mistake is not telling Panthea the truth. That Araspas is such a bad guy that when he knew he was going to get in trouble, he turned traitor and went to Antiochus, telling her that to kind of assuage her. I think that is where it's going to go wrong. Panthea assuming that Araspas is still on the wrong side. That's going to lead to trouble. We'll see.
Cyrus's little white lie. Will it come back to bite him? Let us see. Eric.
I was just going to say that this is actually something that's quite, still kind of, very contemporary, not only of its time, but also contemporary for ours, that only men can hold men to account, which is kind of weird for, things that happen to women or that they want to do to women or, whatever.
Rachael.
No, I was gonna say that this play is doing so much that we haven't even gotten to talk about the military stuff where sometimes when we're doing court dramas or something, we'll talk about the kings and the governments, but we haven't even touched that. And also there's this part where in some other plays they'll have rhyming couplets or something between two different characters to show that there's some sort of continued thing between them, but there's these commas that denote continued speech between two people in this. That's interesting to me.
This flow of text, we are moving in the general direction of wars. Your pucker war is feels like there might be a war any minute now. Any second for those who came here for the war. It may happen. Any other thoughts? Briony.
I wasn't sure if I'd missed something, so I've just had to double check in the chat, but it seems really odd that this is the first time that Panthea's mentioned that she's got a husband.
Oh, it did crop up. She did say she was taken earlier. Yesterday, I think. It did crop up yesterday.
Yeah. It wasn't clear whether they were espoused or actually married, but yeah, she has a guy that she's in, and
she'd never mentioned how that he might be a useful military ally, which I would have thought would have been a really good bargaining chip to play. I think that's an important point. Yeah. Helen.
Yeah, she's the Queen of Susa. We get that a lot. And she's Queen of Susa because she's married to the King of Susa. We just didn't know what his first name was, or that he had it in for Cyrus's enemy anyway.
So it looks like by refusing to meet up with her earlier, Cyrus has possibly shot himself in the foot, actually. He could have had a useful ally a lot sooner. And all of this unpleasantness and awkwardness could have been avoided. But then we wouldn't have had a play, would we? Okay, we go into Act 4, and the acts are going to get shorter. Enter Antiochus, Araspas, and Nobles. else?
Araspas, though thy birth and parentage seem deadly to the Assyrian ears, being descended of our chiefest foes, who purchased gentry by our overthrow, and in their ensigns bear the Assyrian arms, yet seeing thou comest as confederate, in token that I love and honor thee, receive this sword, and fight courageously.
Antiochus, I'll wear it for thy sake, and for the wrong that Cyrus offered me. Unless my destiny prevent my drift, I'll quickly hansel it with Cyrus' blood.
Wherein hath Cyrus wronged thee, Persians say?
In barring me of her whom I esteem, above the value of his diadem. Panthea, my lord.
What Panthea, Abradatas' wife?
Aye, lovely Panthea, Abradatas' wife.
Speak not of Panthea if thou lovest me, for her remembrance wounds my heart afresh.
His grace is always passionate and sad. If she be mentioned, therefore name her not.
Not that alone, but many injuries incense me to attempt his overthrow. For in the field wherein your father fell, I got rich armour, gold, and sumptuous tents, all which he took unto his proper use, and gave unto his special favourites. Nor had I wherewithal at Cyrus' hands to heal those wounds which I received in fight.
Then see thou make as deep wounds in his flesh, and so cry quittance with the covetous king. I give thee to this sword, armour, and horse, a horse as fierce as proud Bucephalus, armour of trustier proof than Thetis found. Therefore, Araspas, fight courageously.
Albeit I have not Alexander's skill to manage him, nor yet Achilles' arms to charge as bravely, yet as good a heart as Alexander or Achilles ever had. And when I shrink for fear out of the field, let me be torn in pieces with that horse, or hewed to death with this bride Karoulla.
Thy words, Araspas, ties me to the field, and make me think I shall be conqueror. Come, let us march from wealthy Babylon, then towards Cyrus with our royal camp.
And they exit. Is Araspas playing a long game, or has he betrayed his master? What does the room think? I particularly like the nobleman going, don't mention Panthea, there's a thing. Of which suddenly that comes out of nowhere. It's like there's a whole other thing that we've missed here. And I just went, sorry, what? Alan.
That was telegraphed in the previous speech.
Previous speech or previous scene?
The previous scene.
I missed that.
Where Panthea's justification of why her husband would be a good ally.
Oh yes.
But even so, we're well into the closing moments of this play. It seems odd that it gets brought up now. It's interesting. Yes, so many complicated interrelationships between people who hate each other. Helen.
I love the way that the gifts of the horse and the armor, nobody mentions Alexander or Achilles. But the hint is there. It's Bucephalus and Thetis, his son. But Araspas says, yes, I too have read the classics.
Right.
Therefore, I know we are referencing Alexander and Achilles. I think it's a lovely moment where he picks the ball up and runs. Yeah. It's a sort of shibboleth. He knows the right words.
Mm. Yes, you got my classical references. You are in my club now. Yes. Other thoughts? It's not a long scene, so we won't linger here too long. Rachael, then Lynn.
No, Dan said yesterday about how there's not random bits of Latin thrown in and stuff. Just how well integrated to the plot is that they're saying like this, these boys they read the classics, and you can tell from this little gift that's being given here that this is what they'll read.
Yeah, I'm hoping the sword, with the sword, the horse is also on stage, because then we can add it to our horse collection. Anyway, Helen.
I've suddenly, I mean, my classical history isn't that good. I have this weird feeling that Cyrus predated Alexander.
Oh, I bet he did.
We're in early modern drama. Time is an illusion.
Yeah, it's fine. But it's a good point. It's a good point to check as well, actually. That's a thing to remind future us to check that as an interesting point. Anyway, we will move on to Act 4, Scene 2. As we conclude, I think, Act 4. No, there's another scene afterwards. Enter Panthea and Cyrus.
My husband, mighty lord from Bactria, where he lay legar for the Assyrian king, is come to serve under your highness' flags, and in your aid hath brought 2,000 horse, backed by his friends Assyrian gentlemen, all which will die at conquering Cyrus' feet.
Is Abradatas come from Bactria? Then will I leave to moan Araspas' loss, and think on conquest and sweet victory. Gobrias, go with lovely Panthea, and bring him presently unto our tent, with those brave horsemen of Assyria, you warlike and victorious men. Marshal your several bands in equipage, that Abradatas, king of Susia, may wonder at the hugeness of our camp, and be the willinger to league with us.
Enter Abradatas with other.
Here he comes, and if by his aspect I may conjecture of his qualities, he's valiant, wise, trusty, and liberal.
I need not ask which is the Persian king, the virtues shining in his glorious looks. Say, this is Cyrus, and in sign of love will Abradatas thus salute his grace.
Sweet Abradatas, thou embracing me, hast stolen my heart. I love and honour thee.
Their lord was never captive gentler used than Panthea of this gracious conqueror. For Panthea, Cyrus I and this my train, of which the meanest soldier may take charge and be commander of a camp of men, so able, wise, and venturous they are, doth rest for ever at your highness' beck. Our horses, which are grazing on the plain in winter gallops and in icy seas, and in the summer swims the deepest streams. Swifter they are in pace than lightfoot hart, surer they are than camels plodding on the ways, fiercer than tigers, and as elephants with castles on their backs. And if they were compassed with arming pikes, they knew which way to make their passage forth. And when their sides is painted eke with blood, they pull their reins and looks down to the ground, as if they vaunted of their service done. The rider being dismounted, they stand still and kneel upon the ground to take him up. But if he chance to die, they pine to death. These are Cyrus and the riders too, soldiers as good as ever sun beheld.
These horses thou speakest of makes me glory more than Lydian Crassusin his heaps of gold, and of them all doth Cyrus make account, as of the strength and sinews of the war. We have intelligence the Assyrian king is come from Babylon to meet us straight. Therefore, if Abradatas favour us, mount and away, for we'll assail them first.
For that comes Abradatas, let's away.
But Abradatas, I will arm thee first. Seest thou those pauldrons? They are gold. These van braces and currets messy gold. The gorget and thy helmet beaten gold. The belt embroidered gold, yet all too base. For Abradatas, lovelier than the gold, may never spear be broken on this breast. But that the point thereof may soon return, and strike him dead that durst to give that charge. This helmet shun thee from the sling sand darts. This Kyle make thee turn with victory. As for this garland made of lusty palm, Panthea reserves it for her conquering lord, upon whose head will Panthea fasten it, and hanging on its neck, like Hector's wife, inquire the manner of the battle past.
Fair be my fortune for my Panthea.
My lord Araspas in the Assyrian arms doth crave success unto your majesty.
Araspas, let him come. He is our friend and brings us tidings from our enemies.
Enter Araspas.
Health unto the person of my gracious lord.
Welcome, Araspas. Brings thou cheerful news? Is Antiochus resolved to fight?
This day he means to encounter with your host.
What is the number of his fighting men?
In all, 200,000 at the least, and thus in order lies his noble camp. The forestone is 10 chariots, of purpose to disrank the approaching so. Next them are 50,000 horsemen placed, to break in where the chariots break the way. Next them 5,000 staves, being lightly laden with spears, helmets, naked swords, to go along to serve the horsemen's use. Then 20,000 Scythians, runagates with venom darts, whose heads are tipped with steel. And last, the battle of the Assyrians, being hedged with lances as a wood with briars, on whose head the crossbows and the slings will shoot and throw bullets of massy iron, whose very fall would strike a clipos down. In midst whereof Antiochus will march, before whom do 1,000 bondsmen draw a brazen wall built upon turning wheels, to guard him sure and his concubine. All these upon my honour I adver.
If every soldier had a wall of brass, it could not daunt us. We are resolute and vowed and sworn unto our swords, which teacheth us to scorn a brazen wall.
Renowned Cyrus, honour me thus far, to have the leading of your vaunt guard forth.
Nay, it belongs unto a Persian.
If to a Persian, it belongs to me.
I served Astyages, your highness, sire. But if a stranger may deserve the place, I hope my serving merits it, my lord.
My husband is a king, Cyrus. I hope will therefore grant it, if not for desert.
Had I four to encounter with, you all should lead the vaunt guard of the field. But only one must have the charge, though all deserve it. Therefore draw you all.
Content.
Content.
Chrysanthus, make the lots.
Pardon me, Cyrus. Though I do repine, why should we draw lots for our proper right?
I'll have it so, Histaspas. Be content.
The lots are ready.
Histaspas, I command thee to begin. Now, Abradatas and the rest.
Fortune hath favoured me, the lot is mine.
Then thou shalt lead the forefront. Let us march.
The enemy is near. Make haste, my lord.
Here, Abradatas, Cyrus placeth thee. Lead warily and fight courageously.
As mine own life, so tender I these men. Now to the battle. Panthea, farewell.
And exit. So, Araspas so far seems to be on side. On side. He's given good intelligence. And we've met Panthea's husband. So more horses, and other things. So it's we're gearing up for war. Wars of Cyrus. War of Cyrus. I think might be currently more accurate, but for an overall title. But yeah, we're moving in that general direction, and it's a reunion between Panthea and her husband. Yeah, it's things are moving on. It's an interesting shape to this play from yesterday. You know, considering how sort of contained everything was to a degree last time. We did vaguely go outside of this court of Cyrus, but the canvas felt quite small, whereas now the canvas is sort of expanded and is doing other things. Rachael.
No, I was gonna say, because I was looking up where Panthea and her husband are from, what their kingdom was, and it's a place in Iran that the Greeks called the Susia place, and so Susia is in Iran. And then where was it? The Scythians are like, and like, what is it? Oh, I just had the map. Oh, like Turkmenistan and places like that, or like Kazakhstan is where Scythians might be coming from.
Other thoughts, Elizabeth?
Yes, I was thinking about the speech Panthea gives, where she talks about all the gold that Abradatas is wearing in his armor, and I was also thinking about, first of all, is gold good for armor? Because I thought gold was quite malleable, and it was quite. I thought first of all, it wasn't a good material for armor, and secondly, I was thinking, is she putting it upon him? Is she dressing him?
It sort of seems like that, but it also seems like there's maybe it's a bit of a fudge. Maybe she just adjusts his armor. It's a good question. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean the armor is entirely made of gold. Maybe it's just plated to look shiny and fabulous.
Yeah, it might be.
How much display is necessary is part of what they're doing in these wars, or is this the idea the playwright has of what this how much bling these people should have? Bling seems to be a very key part of all of these people's lives so far. So display seems really important to them. Also for Abradatas, it seems to be on the same lines. Lynn.
Yeah, gold is actually not very good for armor. It's soft and it's heavy. So it might be gold plated. But I mean, speaking of bling, this is Araspas's third long disquisition of description. He describes his fancy pet, he describes Panthea herself, and now he's got this description of the army. Maybe if this is like a boys' company play, that was the kid who was going to be an orator later. So they give him the big speeches of description. It's just like he keeps doing this long, and it was so beautiful, and it was like this.
Well, it's interesting with Araspas because, of course, he's describing, that you feel like he needs to roll out a map and you're going around. Yeah. Well, this is where the chariots are. This is where these are. This is this, and because this is a council of war. And it's also, what are our feelings about? Because Araspas is he on our side? Are we happy that he's on our side? Where is this going? Helen.
Yeah, I felt very much that he had a notebook, and he was flipping the page. He didn't have. I know memory was better then, but I still think that he'd been making notes. He had a tablet or something, and also, I mean, in Araspas's defense, although he did behave in a very creepy way, nothing actually happened.
True. No harm, no foul.
Yeah.
Discuss. Rachael.
No, I mean, back to that gold armor. That's I think that says so much about rank, and I think that's just, it might not be good for actual battle, but I think for saying the rank of this person, that it's new armor and that it's gold, says a lot. And then to the point that Helen made, I think that there's so much echoes, that say something with sexual harassment or even stalking in modern day, that it's hard to pin those things down, and you can only make a paper trail before anything is actually done, and that there's still not a lot of legislation. I think that protects people from those things because they just call them like he said, she said type things.
And within the stage world that this play is portraying, the only reason bad things are not happening is because Cyrus is so great. I mean, I don't think there's anything on paper in this society saying that Panthea or any of the people, the women or the people with lower status actually have any power at all over there. Or the fact that they've made it through here is so far. We still have an act or an act and a bit to go. The stage world is a cruel world, and we really, the play doesn't linger on the fact that Cyrus is being presented in a very positive way, but he is a leader, and the question of how nice a leader who leads armies is always one of those slightly dodgy ones. Okay, we're going to go do the final scene of Act 4. We can be reasonably certain it is the final scene of Act 4 for reasons that will become clear in a moment. Enter Panthea and Nicasia.
Farewell, and my good angel follow thee, and every star that reigned when I was born, whose influence hath kept me yet from harm. Unfortunate be to make thee blessed.
And misery cease on Nicasia, so Abradatas be kept from harm.
Ye Persian deities, for Cyrus' sake, Assyrian gods, for Abradatas' sake, give victory unto the Persians, that I may see my husband wear this wreath.
Madame, Bellona's shrine is here at hand. Oh, let us go to offer sacrifice, to make her more propitious to his grace, for now he is amongst the Assyrian troops.
I'll offer all my jewels on the shrine, and make sweet fumes of ambergris and myrrh, of Indian cassia, musk, and frankincense, that Abradatas may be conqueror. First at her altar let us jointly sing, for music is a sacrifice to her.
And so we can perhaps infer that there is some music there, and that this scene effectively continues straight on from the previous one. That entrance seems like the first line of that dialogue actually follows directly on from Panthea, farewell at the end of the last scene, and farewell and my good angel followed thee. So that seems like that's an entirely fake scene division that I may have added in. I apologise for that. We know that every time Nicasia is here we get a song, so I think we can heavily land on music time there. Any thoughts to be thrown in there? Otherwise, we'll go straight into Act 5, Scene 1. No, let's move on.
I had something.
Francis.
Yeah, it just seemed to me. It felt like that little interlude is there with all this praising of the gods and saying we're going to make a sacrifice. It feels like it's there to allow time for some sort of stage business. I don't know what though.
I think that is a very, very, very plausible thing. And anytime music happens is usually a good interval cue in the sense of just making sure that the candles aren't doing terrible things. Rachael.
Because she says the frankincense and the myrrh and all this stuff, and then Nicasia sings, I wonder if this would be a place for a religious song. And if they would have, even though this is a play taking place in the Middle East, if they would have, some sort of Protestant, or I don't know what period this is, or if it's Catholic, sort of like song, and bring in censers and candles to show that these children would have some sort of religious study or two, or some for moral, teachings.
Maybe.
Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts? No. Okay, we're going to go into this scene. There is one note in the script in square brackets you can ignore. Don't wait for it. I'm not going to say it. Otherwise, as I've currently got it, Act 5, Scene 1, enter Cyrus, Panthea, and the army.
Great lords, to whom the Assyrian sceptre yields, and Babylon, through right of victory, lies open to those conquering swords of yours. How fares my lord and loving fair? My Abradatas, lives he conqueror, or left by destiny numbered with the dead?
Fair lady, virtuous, chaste, and amiable, I trust your love among the living dwells, and like a champion and a knight at arms will show himself, or many hours expire, his temples adorned with victorious palm.
When to the sight my lord addressed his bands, devoutly entered I Bellona's fane, and there before the altar of the saint perfumed the air with smoke of holy fire, and breathed forth my plaints and eke my moans. Thrice I meseemed the goddess turned her face, offending like, frowning with angry brows, against my prayers and my holy vows. O Cyrus, if my jealous thoughts divine some dismal sequel to this fantasy, yet pardon me seeing women's wits are weak, and love abound with superstitious fear.
Madam, I trust the presence of your lord, returning back in triumph and renown, shall soon remove those thoughts out of your mind. So grant the gods my country's presidents.
And Abradatas is born in dead.
What slaughtered body do you Persians bring?
Cyrus, the body of the Susian king, stout Abradatas by the Egyptians slain.
Now let my lord the prince of Persia judge, whether unhappy Panthea feared in vain. O noble love, whose manly heart deserved to joy the benefit of longer life, and richer trophies to enlarge the same. But tell us now after what sort he died.
Mounted aloft his chariot armed with scythes, beating the strong Egyptians down, a few of his familiar trusty friends, with dreadful race insist his chariot wheels, while the other, in the battle turning back, abandoned him among the Egyptian pikes. Yet Abradatas with the few remained, by force and virtue of his puissant hand, sends thousands of the heathenish foes to hell, till at the last, dismounted from his seat, and round environed with his enemies, after so many mortal wounds received, he fell, and yielded up his kingly ghost. The Egyptians, as their barbarous custom is, when he was dead, cut off his stout right hand, and left it lying by the breathless corpse. But with a band of Persian men-at-arms, we rescued him and brought him to your grace, here to receive such worthy funerals, as fits the honour of so great a lord.
Now, Euphrates, whose sad and hollow banks have sucked the sum of Abradatas' blood, which from his wounds did issue with his life, now cease thy course of thy disdained tears, and let thy courage turn against the tide of mere remorse of wretched Panthea's plaints. Is this the hand that plighted faith to me, the hand that I have managed kingly arms, and brought whole troops of mighty warriors down, now sended from the body of my lord, clean void of feeling, sense, and vital breath, so gods and cruel destinies command, malignant of poor Panthea's happiness? Live, Cyrus, you lords of Persia, command my honour to posterity, that ages hence the world report may make that Panthea died for Abradatas' sake.
And she stabs herself.
Gone is my lady peerless Panthea, slain with her self-grief for Abradatas' sake. Nicasia loathes to live when she is gone, the pride and phoenix of Assyria. I'll not presume to touch the fatal steel wherein my lady's sacred blood do smoke. Receive me in thy bowels, Euphrates, and let thy bottom be Nicasia's grave.
O Persians, see if any breath remaineth.
Cyrus, alas, all sense of feeling is gone. His senseless limbs with stiffness overgrown, no rubbing, warming, aught availeth us. But pale death sits as a conqueror over him. Let Araspas kneel down. Oh, that's a stage direction.
Let Araspas kneel down by Abradatas.
Mirror of honour and true nobility, no age, no time shall ever race thy fame. whilst Euphrates doth keep his running stream. What Abradatas and chaste Panthea too? O Abradatas, worthy man at arms, O Panthea, chaste, virtuous, and amiable, this office Cyrus to your wandering ghost reserves in store to grace your funerals, with monuments of fatal Eleni, of cedar, marble, lead, and during brass, that future worlds and infants yet unborn may kiss your tombs wherein your bodies lie, and wonder at the virtues of your mind. Assyrian lord, such honour thou shalt have, as ever had Assyrian at his grave. 600 head of cattle shall be slain and sacrificed upon the funeral's day. 12,000 horses being manned each one, trapped all in black, shall go before thy hearse. The towered battlements of Babylon bend in contempt of heaven and earth and men. Those marks of pride shall be abated down to make a show of mourning for thy death. Such honour as you both received in life, such honour shall you both receive in death.
And the play stops. Various questions arise straight away, one of which is, who won? It's a minor point, I know, but they were having a bit of a war with this guy, Antiochus, and I don't know if they actually mentioned that. They seem to be fighting Egyptians now. I don't recall. So this is where I did have in the script, that was about the point when I just started noticing that this stuff doesn't seem to quite make sense. That there feels like there's some stuff missing, and that we don't quite get the conclusion we were hoping for. I mean, it has to be said, the play hasn't landed in quite as bad a place as we were worrying that it would do, but it has also managed to land in a place of just going, something's happened here. And even when I said Act 5, Scene 1 there, that feels again like it's actually still a continuation of the previous scene, that we've just got one long continuous scene running here, just with music and stuff, so that Panthea waves her husband off. They sing a song. Cyrus enters to her. Cyrus is obviously not, he's outsourced the entire battle. He's not even vaguely standing on the sidelines. He's having a cup of tea. And then we get news that apparently they've been fighting Egyptians, which I didn't get earlier. I don't know. Maybe geographically that's perfectly legitimate. So yeah, thoughts in the room, Francis.
When the Egyptians were mentioned, I kind of assumed that because you've got several armies on one side and several armies on the other, just some of them were Egyptians.
Oh yeah, I in a sense I don't have a problem with that. I just like to know what's happening to the rest of the people. It's just, if that's their elite corps that took out him, that's sort of fine. But we got no detail of any other element of the battle. Yeah. Elizabeth, then Helen, then Alan.
Yeah, well, I thought that Panthea's death was quite fitting, because I still don't quite understand why she offered up Abradatas to Cyrus, almost as if to take Asparus's place. I think that she has to take some blame for Abradatas' death, because as the king of Susia, he had no real business fighting Cyrus's wars for him.
Yeah.
I had a quick run back over Araspas's, what I think of as the catalogue of ships, but it isn't. It's his list of the whole army, and nowhere does he mention Egyptians.
No, you would think.
Absolutely not. There are all sorts of people he mentions, but Egyptians aren't among them.
Yeah, it's unless it was a trap.
Oh God.
He deliberately didn't mention the Egyptians, and then they sprang up, and aha, you weren't expecting the Egyptians to be there with their spears. I don't know.
But there's
I'm
no
clutching at
doubt that
straws.
Cyrus has won because he's the one who can order the sacrifices. He's the one who's still on his feet at the end, giving orders.
But
He's
we've
not
got no
running.
news as to what happened to Antiochus. I mean, apart from losing, but is he dead? Was he even there? The political situation is unclear.
True. But Panthea is being all very noble and sacrificial. And the poor kid who's with her, who goes and jumps in the Euphrates, and nobody notices.
Yeah, it does feel like, because we have this sort of random stage direction that clearly doesn't quite work, that I attempted to read, but sensibly actually didn't happen. It does feel like that maybe there should be something there that isn't. Alan?
Yeah, I think I would agree with your comment that here the play stops. I don't think it ends. And I think we'd be in great trouble under the Trade Descriptions Act, because the things described the Wars of Cyrus and we didn't get them. So anybody who came along to see it expecting lots of fighty stuff is going to be very disappointed. And I'm not quite sure what the heck we have got.
Well, it's well. I mean, it all feels actually relatively whole. I mean, it's always felt very brisk, that we're getting through scenes at a fair old lick, and things are moving along. But it definitely feels like there are gaps here, and I'm just feeling, that we're right on top of another play that's doing similar business, the Battle of Alcazar, which is similarly damaged. Or more explicitly, clearly damaged in the way the printing has come to us, in that there are speeches that have been cut and paste with big gaps in the middle, and I'm just wondering if there's a similar thing has happened here, that there was a more coherent thing, and it's been stripped back to what the printer or whoever passed it on to the printer thought was the cogent details. Dan,
I can hold it for final thoughts, but I've got thoughts on that.
No, I think you can wade in. We're pretty on top of final thoughts anyway, so go for it.
So throughout this entire session, I've been just looking over what Edward Aldie, the printer, has done, because this just seemed like a very odd printing, and it's been remarked on throughout the last today and yesterday. Aldie did print. Aldie comes from the Aldie family of printers. So John Aldie, Edward Aldie, then picked up by his wife Elizabeth Aldie later on with Friar Bacon. And I was looking at printings from before this and right around this time period, which includes Spanish tragedy, which includes Massacre at Paris, which, if anyone is familiar with which anyone's familiar, seems to be also sort of a troubled printing, as well as Battle of Alcazar. And so some of the things I've noticed, yesterday I was going off on Aldie saying this was not his finest work, but it could have also been the copy text. I'm starting to think it was the copy text and not Aldie. Because Aldie is pretty much notes everything, and seems to me someone who copies exactly what he sees and doesn't and intervenes probably as little as possible there. For example, in Battle of Alcazar, there are also activisions, but then when you get to Massacre at Paris, there are not. Massacre at Paris and Battle of Alcazar are highly, highly descriptive in their stage directions, which can indicate possibly authorial in some sense, that then got possibly converted into a playbook to be used, because Battle of Alcazar, as Rob has just mentioned, appears to be an abridged text. So it looks to have been cut down, possibly for performance. There was a comment that Rachael had made about the commas, which is not uncommon. You see this in Ralph Royster Doyster, seeing speeches ending in commas. During the time period, you'll see scribes who do this. This is not unknown to happen. And yes, I would agree 100% that it does often indicate not just sloppiness of any sort, but the idea that this is meant to continue as possibly a speech or meant to be a conversation going on. There was a couple of places in our text itself where there are shared lines that are in the printing there. So it seems to me, once again, that Aldie is going right off of his text. One other hallmark of playbooks that were for performance is that there will be a lack of exits there, because exits are something that you would not need to indicate in the playbook that would be held by the book holder, the bookkeeper. And that does not account for the reason why there are a lot of missing entrances. But I mean, one can start to speculate, theorize as to, well, maybe that was cut off, or maybe illegible, I don't know what. But stage entrances seem to be rewritten a lot in the text, and this seems to be sort of an incomplete text, which might also account for the fact that lots of songs are missing, which, as not everyone, but which is well known that songs would have been a separate entity and possibly incorporated into the book later. This is all to say that incomplete printing, probably based on an incomplete script, probably scribal, possibly prepared for performance there. Can return to this if questions come up from anyone else.
Yeah, I mean, it's the thing that in performance I can understand. Yeah, I could understand if there was a longer text that gets trimmed down in performance, and they sort of go, well, actually, the tying up of those loose ends, they never landed. So we'll just quietly, we'll just make the ending really atmospheric, so that we've got this music and we've got this this ritualistic element of what Panthea is doing, and then there's suicide, and then there's details that don't get through. I can see this actually working. I can worry about certain elements of it, but in a sense, it doesn't feel a completely incoherent and unstageable text. And to follow up sort of down what Dan was saying there, that the text cuts may be entirely rational within a performance context, even if we don't find them wholly satisfactory. The absence of music, I think, is a really big problem here, because I think that actually ties a lot of this last section of action together. I think without the music, I don't think this section actually makes any sense at all.
Just to follow up on that really fast, if I may, just the idea that the war is not described or battles are not described seems to be indicative of less authorial and more prepared by a scribe for performance, because that's not something that a scribe would do for a playbook. It's something that you stage and not say, well, you're going to do this and you're going to do this. No, you're going to leave it up to whoever's staging it and all that. I mean, this is speculation, but the evidence of the existing playbooks seems to indicate that that's what a bookkeeper would do.
Okay. Other thoughts, and which don't have to be on this issue, can just be on what you experienced and took out of the play. And we'll take these as your final thoughts as we're going round. Briony, I think.
Yeah, I just don't really get the point of it all. There hasn't been like a big journey in any real way in this. Nobody, this Cyrus hasn't had like some character journey. There's like the ending of the war's a bit ambiguous. Panthea, yes, it's great that she didn't end up getting raped. I really thought she was gonna, but personally, I don't think it was out of any sense of honor. I think she killed herself because otherwise that would have happened, because she hasn't got a husband to defend her anymore. I don't know, but yeah, it's very unsatisfying.
Yes, we were talking yesterday about the fears we had about what will happen in the final session. That sense of anticlimax is a slightly different one than I think we were preparing, but for. We didn't. Those threads didn't feel pulled together. Araspas's, journey is that he's with the conquering winners and is completely forgiven. She's dead. Gobrias has disappeared. It's an odd play in that sense, but we don't know precisely why. Alan, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and with all due respect to Dan, I think it feels to me like it was a Friday job by the compositor, probably wanting to get down the pub, because there are so many examples of bitch type in the way it's come to us, which I think is from an OCR of the printing. The whole thing to me feels unsatisfactory. I think it would need a lot of work on the text to make it playable, and quite honestly, I doubt whether that effort is worthwhile given what we've got.
You see, for all the criticism I made of the text so far, I still think it actually functioned perfectly well as a play. There's elements of here where I just think at pace it might fly a bit better. And I really think the music element is really important here.
Yeah, but
about
we're
what
working
this
with
is.
what we got.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. But I'm talking about the potential of what can be done with it, which is not always in. There is the additive quality of what can be done with it. Helen, any final thoughts?
Yeah, as far as the text goes, my impression, and I'm not a textual scholar, my impression is of a text that they were looking for things to publish. This existed, but it was played some time ago. And this is all we've got been able to scrounge of what the play was. As far as the play itself goes, yeah, I think there are some excellent parts to it. I mean, the bondsman who dresses up as the girl has a very interesting journey. And I think some of the descriptive speeches have some very nice stuff in them. Especially some of the start right at the beginning of yesterday when they were discussing the pillage and the loot and all these incredible tents and wonderful things that they'd lifted. I think there's quite a bit there that's really, really good. But it's unfortunate in that I don't think nobody else thinks either, that we've got a complete play. We've got something really wrong towards the end.
Yeah, I think the gap between printing and its existing and it is not inconsiderable, and it's an interesting question actually how long Boys Company plays stayed in a repertoire, of which I don't know if there are any real answers to that. But yeah, Lynn, any final thoughts?
Yes, I just wanted to briefly touch on Francis's question from earlier in the session where he was wondering aloud about the honors stripped from Ctesiphon, like what happens to those? Those get conferred on somebody else. And I do think I see evidence of that honor is a finite quantity mentality that I think, I have heard from educated people, that mentality existed in the classical world, that honor is a zero-sum game. If more for you is less for me. So I think that ethos is there, that we have the divesting of Ctesiphon, and then we have the honors being conferred on what's his name, Panthea's husband. And only one person can be in the vanguard. We have to have lots for it. So yeah, there's that ethos of that honor and renown and dignity is a finite quantity that has to be shared. But as to the play as a whole, yeah, I kind of agree with both Helen and Briony that there are some really nice moments on that smaller scale, but overall it's really unsatisfying. Cyrus is always the same. That the move of making Araspas a spy. Ooh, what's going to happen there? It goes exactly like it's supposed to. Like, that's not very fun. So that's a complication that never happens. And the only person that dies is someone that we've only just been introduced to and don't really have any investment in. And then Panthea, of course, we've seen throughout. So the whole, if there's any kind of central character whose tragic journey we're following, it's Panthea. But yeah, it just feels really dramaturgically sloppy. That's not really the right word, but yeah, dramaturgically unsatisfying.
Francis, you've only been here for today, and you were the king. I like that thought that Lynn brought up. That Cyrus seems to run everything by random chance, and it's just wandering around with a set of dice, basically, isn't it? Who wants to marry? And you rolled a 6. There you go, Francis.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I found it an interesting session. And sometimes when I come in at the end of one of these plays, it can be pretty dull. But I found this a really interesting session because, as Lynn said, there's some really nice little bits. I enjoyed the bit with Libanio and Dinon, is it? And as I said earlier, I found that bit with the stripping of what's his name, Ctesiphon or whatever his name was. I found that really interesting. And thanks for the answer to my question then. But I kind of agree with everybody that the ending is really unsatisfactory. And I find it depressing that Panthea has to kill herself because her husband's dead. It's as if she can't have a life without her husband. It's a depressing thing for women. So, yeah, that's my take on it all.
Eric, any final thoughts?
Well, I was going to say something about Cyrus, but then I realized that I accidentally scrolled to the beginning of the document, as one does, and it's like in the prologue it says, being Xenophon, from whence we borrow right, being both a soldier and philosopher, warrants what we record of Panthea. Like the prologue doesn't even give a thing about Cyrus, which is quite interesting. Like there's no mention of him. It's her story. And what I find interesting is that she kills herself, and I was thinking of Cleopatra actually, because like she kills herself too at the after a military campaign has gone. Well, I mean, not in the place, but I mean, historically speaking, she has killed herself after military campaigns have gone really, really terrible. And an impending conqueror is basically either going to have her or not. Yeah, so it's kind of, I don't know, I find it an interesting play considering what might have actually been going on at the time as well. I mean, in the context of like for its time as well. And I don't know, it's good. I really want to see it as a second look basically, and I'm like, okay, why not?
Dan, you did speak lengthily earlier. Do you have anything additional and different to say as a final thought?
Yeah, just to say that I didn't find it unsatisfying. I liked it. I think that there's a lot missing from it, or I shouldn't even say necessarily a lot missing, but I should say there are definitely pieces that are missing that are crucial to this play, namely the songs. There, a lot of this I think possibly was staged and we just can't see it because it's not listed in the stage directions, it's not in the text, but that doesn't mean action wasn't happening there.
I think this can definitely be saved by production. We may have to add some additional material, but not that much. It's just careful planning. I'll go to Rachael for your final thoughts. You seem quite enthused.
No, I was gonna say that Panthea, even though this is called the Wars of Cyrus, she's the one who we come in with, she's the one we leave with in the story. She's the one that bookends it. And also, Cyrus, like rolling the D&D dice for who gets what. Him being so, I don't know, egalitarian and how he gives out his gifts. He's amassed 2 countries within this play. Abradatas, swears his army to him, and if he goes, it's Cyrus's. And Gobrias' daughter has been married off to one of his vassal lords, so he now has a whole new army on his side and a connection to another king by marrying the daughter to his vassal. And I think this war, there's fighting here, but even if there wasn't fighting in it, I think that says something about this king, that he only goes to war when he can't negotiate his way out of it. And he's such a good governor. I don't know. I really love this, and I feel like it went for that neoclassical ending. And I would like a second look because I think there's so many different things that can still be pulled out of this.
Elizabeth, you came in again also in this second session, but you got to enact the tragical end of Panthea. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, Rob, I'm with Rachael on this one. I really enjoyed it. I think I was comparing it to some of the Turkish plays we've done, some of the political plays we've done. I was definitely thinking of Battle of Alcazar, which you mentioned. And I was just thinking that the play, to me, seemed like more of a cerebral text. I was really happy that no one got strangled, because in a lot of our Turkish plays or in our war plays, we get these characters just get randomly strangled on stage. And I just thought that was really awkward and difficult to do acting wise and make it convincing. And also I think a lot of the Turkish plays we've done have been very, very gory, with a lot of death and a lot of killing on stage. And although there's a place for that, I really like that in the part of I almost called it Panthea, the Wars of Cyrus, that I saw today. We didn't have that kind of goriness. It was more of an intellectual text, and it was definitely about the geography of Cyrus's world and Cyrus as the king. I really enjoyed that. Yeah.
Well, when you were saying you almost called it Panthea, I don't think there's a problem with that. I mean, the full title is The Wars of Cyrus, King of Persia, against Antiochus, King of Assyria, with the tragical end of Panthea. So, in that hedging bet style that plays have as to what you're cramming as much detail about the play in. And it's generally listed as the Wars of Cyrus, but I see no reason why actually it shouldn't be. The tragedy of Panthea. Within the wars of King Cyrus of Persia, or something along those lines. That's a marketing problem for the future. I'm not too worried about it now. Lynn?
Yeah, I think just changing the title to the tragedy of Panthea with the Wars of Cyrus would have made it more satisfying for me. Is that a dumb thing to say? I mean, just like, tell me what it's about, and I know how to.
It would be more honest, wouldn't it?
Well, it framed it in the same way that the room may have had with Alcazar, because we spend all the time going, when's the Battle of Alcazar happening? Is it coming? Is it there yet? Is it there yet? And it doesn't happen till Act 5. And it's exactly the same thing. If we're waiting for Wars of Cyrus, that it doesn't happen until Act 5. Dan?
One should always keep in mind with early modern play titles that they're very fluid. We don't know if they were necessarily proposed by the author or if they were marketing from play to play, or concocted by a printer or by a scribe or what. A lot of the play tales that we do have are just because we've just taken the popular the title character's name because we don't have a title page or whatnot. In this particular case, agreed. Yeah, maybe it should not have been called Wars of Cyrus, King of Persia, but that's how it got titled on its title page. So that's how we're referring to it. Because yes, as was referred, it does say with the tragical end of Panthea after that. Could have easily been reversed.
And from our perspective, we're talking about, which is a marketing thing, of just going, if we're trying to sell this play, well, the Wars of Cyrus isn't going to sell any more tickets than the tragical end of Panthea. So I don't actually care what we call it, apart from so long as that detail is suitably emailed to the 4 people who have heard of the play in advance, so that they have an opportunity to come. Sadly, we have run out of time. I'm sure our conversation will continue once we've gone off camera, but. If you've enjoyed our tragical end, then do come again when we continue reading more plays in the future. You can always join us, there's sign-up forms on the website. Anyone around the world can join us whenever you like. Come, join us. It is fun. We are not a cult. Goodbye, everyone. No woman but a bondman strike and fly.